My name is Elliot Vance, I'm 31. And if you'd asked my family a year ago what I brought to the table, they probably would have laughed. Not in a loud, obvious way. No, my family wasn't that kind of cruel. They were quieter about it. The kind of quiet where people stop asking what you do for work. Where your opinions get skipped over at dinner. Where decisions happen around you, not with you. And for a long time, I let that happen. I don't know why, exactly. Maybe it was easier than fighting it. Maybe I got used to being the one who never quite figured things out. But here's the thing they didn't know. The thing no one knew. Every single one of them had been depending on me for years. They just didn't realize it. And when they finally did, yeah, that's when everything broke. It didn't start out like this. Growing up, I wasn't the problem child, or anything dramatic. I was just average. Quiet. The middle child, which already tells you a lot. My older sister, Danielle, was the golden one. Straight A student, student council president, the kind of person who made everything look effortless. Teachers loved her. Relatives couldn't stop talking about her. Then there was my younger brother, Marcus. He had this natural charm, you know? The kind that makes people forgive him before he even apologizes. Athletic, social, always surrounded by friends. And me? I was the one who stayed in my room too long. The one who liked computers. The one people assumed would figure something out eventually. I remember one Thanksgiving, must have been 10 years ago now. My uncle asked everyone at the table what their plans were. Danielle talked about law school. Marcus went on about starting a business with a friend. Then it got to me. I said something about freelancing. Web work. Helping small businesses online. He nodded, but it was that kind of nod. The polite one. Oh, that's nice. And then he turned to Marcus again like I hadn't said anything important. That moment stuck with me longer than it should have. Looking back, it wasn't even the worst thing anyone ever said to me. But it set the tone. I became background noise. By my mid-20s, the gap between how we were seen only got wider. Danielle became a corporate attorney. Big firm. Big city. The kind of job people brag about even if it's not theirs. Marcus actually did start a business. It wasn't huge, but it looked impressive from the outside. Branding, social media, all of it. And me? I worked from home. Which, apparently, translated to not really working. I'd tell people I ran back-end systems for small companies. Managed databases. Set up automations. Fixed things before they broke. You could almost see their eyes glaze over. It wasn't flashy. It didn't come with a title that sounded important. So eventually, I stopped explaining. Yeah, I do some tech stuff. That became my default. Family gatherings turned into this weird routine. Danielle would talk about cases she couldn't fully explain, but made sure everyone knew were important. Marcus would casually mention clients and growth, throwing in numbers just vague enough to sound big. And me? I got asked if I was still doing that computer thing. Sometimes I'd joke about it. Keep things light. Other times, I'd just nod and change the subject. I don't think they meant to be dismissive. Not consciously, at least. But intention doesn't really change the outcome. The weird part is, I was doing well. Actually, more than well. But my work didn't look impressive from the outside. I wasn't posting about it. I didn't have a flashy office. No business cards, no LinkedIn updates every other day. Most of what I did happened behind the scenes. Fixing broken systems. Building tools that save people hours, sometimes entire teams. Setting up things that, when they worked properly, no one even noticed. Which, ironically, is how you know you did it right. No one notices when everything runs smoothly. They only notice when it stops. And that's where this story really begins. It was my dad's 60th birthday. Big gathering. Extended family, a few family friends, even some of Danielle's colleagues showed up. The house was louder than usual. Music in the background, people talking over each other, the smell of food everywhere. I was in the kitchen, helping my mom carry plates out. Well, she said, adjusting something on the counter. At least you're here early this time. I smiled a little. Yeah, figured I'd help. She gave me that look, you know the one. Not unkind, just measured. That's good, Elliot. It's nice when you're involved. I didn't respond. Just picked up another plate. I don't think she meant anything by it. But still. Later that evening, everyone gathered in the living room. Dad was opening gifts. People were laughing, clapping, passing drinks around. Marcus was telling a story, something about a client deal that almost fell through but didn't. He had the whole room hooked. Danielle chimed in with some witty comment, and everyone laughed again. And I was sitting off to the side half listening. That's when my aunt leaned over to me. So Elliot, she said, lowering her voice just enough to make it feel personal. Are you still figuring things out? I blinked. Something like that, I said. She gave me a sympathetic smile. Well, don't worry. Everyone finds their place eventually. I nodded, even though something about that sentence felt heavier than it should have. I went outside for some air after that. The backyard was quieter, cooler. I remember standing there, looking at the lights strung along the fence, thinking, maybe they're right. Maybe I had built something too invisible. Something that didn't translate into respect, or recognition, or anything that mattered in a room like that. I don't know how long I stood there. But eventually Marcus came out. Hey, he said, leaning against the railing. You okay? Yeah, I said. Just needed a break. He nodded. Then after a pause he added, you ever think about doing something bigger? I glanced at him. Bigger how? I don't know, he shrugged. Something people can actually see. You've got skills, man. Just feels like you're hiding. I almost laughed. Hiding? If only he knew. Because what Marcus, and no one else in that house, realized was that the systems keeping his business running, the client dashboards he was so proud of, the automated workflows he bragged about, yeah, I built those. Quietly. Over late-night calls where he'd say things like, can you just fix this real quick? Or, I'll owe you one. Same with Danielle. Her firm's internal scheduling tool that magically stopped crashing? The document automation that saved her team hours every week? That was me too. Different email. No credit. Just a contact. Even my dad. The inventory system for his small store. The one he loved talking about because it modernized everything. I set that up. Maintained it. Fixed it whenever it glitched. No invoice. No recognition. Just family. And for the longest time, I told myself that was enough. Helping them was enough. Being useful, even if no one acknowledged it, was enough. But standing there in the backyard that night, hearing Marcus talk about me like I hadn't done something bigger, yet, something shifted. They weren't underestimating me because I lacked something. They were underestimating me because I let them. And maybe, just maybe, they had no idea how much they had to lose. I didn't storm back inside after that conversation with Marcus. Honestly, I just stood there a little longer than I needed to. The music from inside was muffled through the glass, voices blending into this low, constant hum. It felt distant. Even though I was only a few steps away, I remember thinking, maybe I've made myself too easy to ignore. Not invisible exactly. Just convenient. Like background infrastructure. You only notice it when it fails. That thought didn't leave me. The next morning, things went back to normal. Which is to say, nothing changed on the surface. Danielle flew back to the city. Marcus got busy with his business. My dad reopened his store like always. And I went back to my apartment, sat down at my desk, and opened my dashboard. Yeah, my dashboard. It wasn't anything fancy to look at. Just a clean interface tracking system, health across different clients. Status lights, performance logs, alerts queued up neatly. Green across the board. Marcus's systems? Running smooth. Dad's inventory? Stable. Danielle's firm tool? No issues. Everything working exactly as expected. Because I was still there. Still maintaining it. Still quietly making sure nothing broke. A few days passed. Then a week. I kept thinking about what Marcus said. About doing something people can actually see. At first, I brushed it off. But it kept coming back. Not as anger. Not even resentment, really. Just a question. What would happen if I stopped? Not forever. Not dramatically. Just stepped back. Let things run without me stepping in every time something needed fixing. I don't know why I thought that would give me clarity. But it felt like the only honest way to find out. So I made a decision. No announcements. No confrontación. I just stopped intervening. I didn't shut anything down. I didn't sabotage anything. I just removed myself from the safety net. No late-night fixes. No proactive patches. No silent updates. If something broke, it would stay broken until someone actually reached out. At first, nothing happened. Everything kept running. And for a moment, I almost felt stupid. Like maybe I'd overestimated my role in all of this. Maybe things were stable enough without me. Maybe I really was just extra. That thought sat heavier than I expected. Then about 9 days in, the first alert popped up. Marcus's system. A minor one at first. Data sync delay between his client dashboard and back-end logs. Not catastrophic. Just off. Normally, I would have fixed it in under 10 minutes. Adjust a process, restart a queue, done. Instead, I watched it. I told myself, give it time. Maybe he'd notice. He didn't. Not that day. Not the next. The delay got worse. Not enough to shut things down, but enough to cause inconsistencies. Numbers not matching up exactly. Reports lagging behind. Subtle stuff. The kind that chips away at trust slowly. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. Marcus. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. Hey, I said. Hey man, he replied, a little distracted. Quick question. Have you ever seen dashboards lag like, randomly? I leaned back in my chair. Depends. What kind of lag? Like, numbers aren't syncing properly. It's not huge, just off. I knew exactly what he was describing. Could be a few things, I said carefully. When did it start? I don't know. Recently. It's weird. There was a pause. Then he added almost casually. You think you could take a look at it sometime? There it was. The familiar pattern. I almost said yes automatically. Muscle memory, I guess. But then I hesitated. I've been pretty tied up lately, I said instead. Might not get to it right away. Silence. Not long. Just enough to feel different. Oh, he said. Okay. Yeah, no ruse. But there was a slight edge in his voice now. Not frustration exactly. Just surprise. We hung up. I sat there for a while after. Part of me felt guilty. Another part of me felt something else. Not satisfaction. More like clarity starting to form. Over the next few days, things escalated. Slowly, but noticeably. Marcus texted again. Then called. The issue hadn't gone away. It had grown. Clients were starting to notice discrepancies. Nothing breaking completely, but enough to raise questions. And Marcus wasn't used to that. His systems had always just worked. Meanwhile, another alert popped up. This time from my dad's store. Inventory mismatch. Again small at first. A few items not updating correctly after sales. Normally, I would have logged in, corrected the sync, and it would have been fine. Instead, I let it sit. 2 days later, my dad called. Elliot, he said, voice a little tighter than usual. This system you set up, it's acting strange. I kept my tone neutral. What's happening? Stock numbers aren't lining up. I sold items yesterday, but they're still showing in inventory. I nodded to myself. That can happen sometimes. Did you check the sync settings? A pause. Then, I don't really know where to look for that. Of course he didn't. I'd always handled it. I can walk you through it later, I said. Busy right now though. Another pause. All right, he said slowly. Just let me know. By the end of that week, 2 things were clear. 1, problems were spreading. Not exploding. Not crashing everything. Just enough friction to disrupt the illusion that everything was easy. And 2, for the first time, they were noticing the systems. Then came Danielle. Her call came late. Later than she usually reached out. I almost didn't pick up. But something told me this one would be different. Elliot, she said, skipping any greeting. That tool you helped set up a while back. Is it still stable? I raised an eyebrow. What's going on? It's glitching, she said, her voice sharper than usual. Documents aren't processing correctly. It's slowing everything down. I could picture her pacing while she talked. She always did that when she was stressed. When did it start? I asked. Recently, she said. It's never done this before. I didn't respond right away, and I think she noticed. Do you know something about this? She asked. There was a hint of suspicion there now. That was new. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling for a second. I haven't touched it in a while, I said. Which was true. I hadn't. Not since I stepped back. Another pause. Longer this time. Can you fix it? She asked. Straight to the point. No small talk. No soul finning. Just expectation. They didn't see me when things worked. But the moment something stopped working, I was the first person they called. I'll see what I can do, I said. But I didn't move. Didn't open my system. Didn't log in. I just sat there, letting the weight of that realization settle fully. Because now, it wasn't just a thought anymore. It was proof. They hadn't been relying on me a little. They had been relying on me for everything that kept their worlds running smoothly. They just never connected the dots. And the cracks? They were only just starting to show. By the time the second week rolled around, the tone had changed. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But enough that I started noticing the difference in how they spoke to me. Less casual. Less patient. More expectation. Marcus called again. This time, there was no small talk. Hey, I really need you to look at this, he said right away. It's getting worse. I stayed quiet for a second. I could hear background noise, voices, maybe a cafe or his office. What's happening now? I asked. The numbers are off enough that a client flagged it, he said. Like, properly flagged it. They think something's wrong on our end. There was tension in his voice now. Real tension. I pictured him running a hand through his hair, pacing. And you haven't changed anything? I asked. No, he said quickly. That's why I don't get it. It was working fine. Yeah, it was. I'll try to take a look later, I said. Later when, he pushed. That caught me off guard. Marcus wasn't usually like this with me. He was used to things just getting handled. I've got stuff lined up, I said. I'll see what I can do tonight. All right, he said, but it didn't sound like agreement. It sounded like restraint. I didn't log in that night. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from him. And a message. This is getting serious. I stared at it longer than I expected. Not because of the words. Because of what wasn't there. No, please. No, when you get time. Just urgency, directed at me. At the same time, my dad texted. Inventory still off. Customers asking questions now. Then Danielle. Need this fixed ASAP. This is affecting work. 3 different people. 3 different problems. All connected. All pointing back to me. I sat at my desk, looking at my dashboard. It wasn't chaos. Not yet. But the warning signs were stacking up. Yellow alerts creeping in where green used to dominate. Latency spikes. Sync errors. Process failures queued up quietly. Nothing catastrophic. Just enough to make everything unreliable. I hovered my mouse over Marcus's system. 1 click. That's all it would take to start fixing things. I knew exactly where the issue was now. I'd seen it develop. I could patch it, stabilize everything, and within an hour, things would look normal again. Like nothing had ever gone wrong. Like I had never stepped back. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. I let it ring. Then again. And again. I finally picked up on the 4th call. Elliot, he said immediately, no greeting this time. What's going on? What do you mean? I asked. This system, he said, frustration leaking through now. You helped build it, right? Yeah, I said. Then why is it breaking? He snapped. I leaned back slowly. It's not breaking, I said. It's just not being maintained. Silence. A sharp kind of silence. What does that mean? He asked. It means systems need upkeep, I said. Updates. Monitoring. Adjustments. Another pause. Then so fix it. Just like that. I exhaled quietly. I told you I've been busy. Busy with what? He asked, and there it was, that edge again, sharper this time. You work from home, Elliot. That one landed. Not because it was new. Because it wasn't. I almost laughed, but it came out more like a short breath. Yeah, I said. Ido. Then I don't understand why this isn't getting handled, he continued. This is affecting my business. There it was. My business. I get that, I said, keeping my voice even. But it's your system. Yeah, that you built, he shot back. And that you've been using, I replied. Without really knowing how it works. That stopped him. Not completely. But enough. Look, he said after a second, softer now but still tense. I'm not trying to argue. I just need this fixed. I didn't respond right away. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to fix it. Not like before. Not quietly. Not invisibly. I'll think about it, I said. And before he could respond, I hung up. That was new. I'd never done that before. Not with Marcus. Not with anyone in my family. I sat there for a while after, staring at my screen. My hands weren't shaking or anything dramatic like that. But something felt different. Like I had finally stepped out of a role I didn't realize I'd been stuck in. The calls didn't stop. If anything, they increased. My dad called later that afternoon. Elliot, he said, voice tight. This system is costing me time. I can't keep checking everything manually. I understand, I said. Then fix it, he replied, almost identical to Marcus. Same tone. Same expectation. Danielle's message came in right after. Not even a call this time. I don't have time for delays. I need this working. No greeting. No context. Just demand. I looked at all 3 conversations. Side by side. And for a second, I felt something close to anger. Not explosive. Not loud. Just steady. Because none of them asked if I could help. They asked when I would fix it. Like it was already my responsibility. Like it had always been. And maybe that was the problem. It had always been. I just never set boundaries around it. That night, I didn't fix anything. The next day, things escalated. Marcus showed up at my apartment. Unannounced. I heard the knock, sharp, impatient. When I opened the door, he was already mid-sigh. Finally, he said, stepping inside before I even said anything. I closed the door slowly. What's going on? I asked. What's going on is my system is falling apart, he said, running a hand through his hair. And you're not doing anything about it. I leaned against the wall. I didn't realize it was my job to maintain your business. He stared at me. What? There it was. The moment where things stopped being implied and started being said out loud. You've always handled this stuff, he said. Why is it suddenly different? I shrugged slightly. I helped you set it up, I said. That's not the same thing. That's not what this is, he snapped. You've been fixing things this whole time. Yeah, I said. I have. Then why stop now? And for the first time, I answered it honestly. Because no one ever treated it like it mattered, I said. The room went quiet. Not dramatic. Just still. Marcus frowned slightly, like he wasn't sure he heard me right. What does that even mean? It means, I said, choosing my words carefully. You all rely on these systems every day, but the person keeping them running. I paused. You barely acknowledge that part. That's not fair, he said quickly. Isn't it? I asked. He looked at me for a second, then shook his head. This isn't about feelings, Elliot. This is about something breaking. No, I said quietly. It's about something that's been taken for granted. He let out a frustrated breath. So what, you're just not going to fix it? I didn't answer right away, because that was the question. The real one. And the answer? Was going to change everything. Marcus didn't sit down. That was the first thing I noticed. He stayed near the door, pacing a little, like he wasn't planning to be there long. Like this was supposed to be a quick fix, not a conversation. Look, he said, running his hand through his hair again. Whatever this is, we can talk about it later. I just need the system working right now. I watched him for a second. Same tone. Same urgency. Same assumption. I'm not logging in, I said. He stopped pacing. What? I'm not fixing it, I repeated, calmer this time. There was a beat where he just stared at me, like I'd said something that didn't compute. Okay. Why are you acting like this? He asked, a little laugh slipping out. But it wasn't amusement. It was confusion. Seriously, what's going on with you? I could have softened it right there. Could have backtracked. Made it easier. But something in me didn't want to smooth this over anymore. I'm acting like someone who's tired of being treated like what I do doesn't matter, I said. Marcus frowned. No one said that. You didn't have to. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. That hesitation? I'd never seen it from him before. Elliot, come on, he said, lowering his voice a little. You know that's not what this is. Then what is it? I asked. It's just you're good with this stuff. So you handle it. Exactly, I said. He blinked. Yeah. So you don't see it, I replied. You don't think about it. You just expect it to work. That's how systems are supposed to work, he said, a little defensive now. Only when someone is maintaining them, I said. Silence settled between us again. Not heavy. Not explosive. Just uncomfortable. The kind of silence people usually try to fill. Marcus didn't this time. You built it, he said finally, like that settled everything. I built a lot of things, I replied. For you. For Danielle. For Dad. That got his attention. What do you mean? He asked. I tilted my head slightly. You really think all of this just runs on its own? He didn't answer. I walked over to my desk and turned my monitor slightly toward him. Come here, I said. He hesitated, then stepped closer. I opened my dashboard. Not the simplified versions they ever saw. The actual system. Logs. Processes. Error queues. Dependencies. Everything. This, I said, pointing at the screen, is your business. He frowned. That's not. It is, I cut in. At least the part that actually keeps your clients happy. I clicked into one of his systems. See this? I pointed to a set of processes. Data sync between your client dashboards and backend. He nodded slowly. This started failing 9 days ago, I said. Not enough to break anything immediately. Just enough to start drifting. His expression changed. Slightly. You knew, he asked. Of course I knew. Then why didn't you? Fix it. I finished. He didn't respond. I clicked again. Another section. Here's your reporting system. It relies on clean data from that sink. Once that goes off, everything downstream starts getting unreliable. I could see it clicking in his head now. Not fully, but enough. Then I switched tabs. This is Dad's store, I said. He leaned in a little. Inventory sync issue. Same pattern. Minor delay at first. Then mismatch. I didn't look at him when I said the next part. I've been correcting that manually for months. He straightened slightly. Months, he repeated. Yeah. Another tab. Danielle's firm tool, I said. Document automation. It doesn't just work. It needs adjustments. Monitoring. Fixes when something changes upstream. I glanced at him. I've been doing that too. The room went quiet again. But this time, it felt different. Marcus stepped back slightly, looking at the screen, then at me. You're saying he started then stopped. I waited. That you've been running all of this, he finished. I shrugged lightly. Maintaining it. Keeping it stable. For how long? I thought about it for a second. Couple years, give or take. He let out a slow breath. And you never said anything? I almost smiled. I did, I said. Just not in a way anyone paid attention to. He ran both hands through his hair now, pacing again, but slower. Processing. You could have just told us, he said. I tried, I replied. It didn't land. That wasn't entirely fair maybe. But it wasn't wrong either. Marcus stopped pacing. So what, this is like some kind of lesson, he asked. I shook my head. No. It's just me stepping back. And letting everything fall apart? I'm not making anything fall apart, I said. I'm just not holding it together anymore. That landed. Harder than anything else. He looked at the screen again. Then back at me. You realize this affects more than just me, right? He said. Client. Money. Reputation. I know, I said. And you're okay with that? That question sat between us. Not simple. Not easy. I'm not okay with being invisible in my own family, I said. He didn't have an immediate response. And for once, Marcus didn't try to win the moment. Instead, he asked something quieter. What do you want? That caught me off guard. Not because of the question. Because of how he asked it. I leaned back against the desk. I want you to understand what I actually do, I said. Not just when something breaks. Not just when you need it fixed. He nodded slowly. And he prompted. And I wanted to stop being assumed that I'll just handle everything. I added. He exhaled. Okay, he said. That's fair. But his tone said he was still trying to balance that with everything else. So what now, he asked. Good question. I glanced at the screen. All those alerts. All those systems waiting. Then back at him. Now. I said. I let things keep going exactly like this. His eyes widened slightly. You're serious? Yeah. Elliot, he said, stepping closer again, urgency creeping back in. This isn't sustainable. I know, I replied. Then why? Because it wasn't sustainable for me either. I cut in. That stopped him again. For the first time since he walked in, Marcus didn't argue. He just stood there, looking at me like he was seeing something he hadn't noticed before. Not new. Just finally visible. And that was the real shift. Not the systems. Not the problems. But the fact that, for the first time, he was starting to connect the dots. But Marcus wasn't the only one who would. Not even close. Marcus didn't argue anymore. That surprised me. If anything, I expected him to push harder, to try and talk me into logging in just this once. That had always been his approach. Smooth things over, fix the problem, deal with the rest later. But he didn't. He just stood there for a moment, staring at the screen again, then at me. I didn't know, he said finally. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't dismissive. Just honest. I nodded. I know. And I did. That was the strange part about all of this. None of them knew. But they also never tried to. Marcus left not long after that. No dramatic exit. No slammed door. Just a quiet, I'll figure something out. I don't think he fully believed that when he said it. And then things started moving faster. Not because I did anything new, but because I didn't. By the next morning, the cracks weren't subtle anymore. Marcus's system had escalated from slightly off to clients asking serious questions. Dad's inventory issue? It turned into actual confusion at the register. Items showing in stock that weren't there. Staff double-checking everything manually. Danielle? She didn't text. She called. Twice. Then a third time. I picked up on the third. Elliot, she said, and I could already hear it, controlled but tight. What is going on? What do you mean? I asked. Don't do that, she snapped. You know exactly what I mean. This system, you built it. It's not working. I helped build it, I corrected. There was a short pause. Fine, she said. Then help fix it. Straight to the point. Same pattern. I'm not fixing it right now, I said. Silence. Not confused this time. Sharp. What? She said. I'm not stepping in, I repeated. Why? That question again. But from her it sounded different. Less curious. More incredulous. Because this isn't just a quick fix situation, I said. This is years of maintenance that's been happening in the background. I don't have time for this, she cut in. I need it working. I understand that, I said. Then act like it, she replied. That one stung more than I expected. Not because it was harsh. Because it was familiar. I have been acting like it, I said a little quieter now. For a long time. She didn't respond immediately. Then. What is that supposed to mean? So I told her. Not all at once. Not like a speech. Just piece by piece. The same way I showed Marcus. The back-end work. The fixes. The adjustments. The late-night patches that kept everything from falling apart. The parts no one saw. The parts no one asked about. By the time I finished, the line had gone quiet. Not disconnected. Just quiet. You're serious? She said eventually. Yeah. And you've been doing all of this without saying anything? I said things, I replied. Just not in a way that stuck. I could almost hear her thinking, replaying conversations, filling in gaps. This is not okay, she said finally. I frowned slightly. What part? All of it, she replied. Why wouldn't you make this clear? Why let it get to this point? I let out a small breath. Why didn't anyone ask what I actually do? I said. That landed. I could tell. Because she didn't answer right away. We're not talking about that right now, she said eventually, shifting back into control mode. We're talking about fixing this. There it is, I said quietly. What? That's the problem, I replied. It always comes back to fixing things. Not understanding them. She exhaled, sharper this time. Elliot, this isn't the moment for whatever this is. This is affecting my work. I know, I said. Then help. And for a second, I almost gave in. Not because I changed my mind. Because it would have been easier. Fix it. Reset everything. Go back to how things were. No tensión. No confrontación. Just silence again. But then I thought about that backyard. About that conversation with Marcus. About every time I'd been reduced to still doing that computer thing. No, I said. She didn't respond right away. Then. You're really doing this, she said. It wasn't a question. I'm just not doing what I've always done, I replied. The call ended shortly after that. No goodbye. Just an abrupt disconnect. By that evening, everything converged. Group chat. Family thread. Messages popping up one after another. Marcus explaining part of it. Danielle adding her side. Dad asking what was going on. My mom trying to keep things calm. And then, the message that shifted everything. Mom. Elliot, can we all talk about this together? This doesn't seem like something small. I stared at that message for a while. Because she was right. This wasn't small anymore. We agreed to meet the next day. At my parents' house. Same place as the birthday. Same living room. Different atmosphere. When I walked in, it felt off. Quieter. No music. No laughter. Just tension sitting in the air. Dad was at the table, arms crossed. Marcus leaned against the wall, unusually quiet. Danielle stood near the window, phone in hand, but not really looking at it. Mom gave me a small, uncertain smile when I walked in. Hey, she said softly. Hey, I replied. No one knew how to start. Which was new. This family always had someone ready to fill the silence. Finally, Dad spoke. All right, he said, looking at me. What's going on? Direct. Simple. I didn't rush the answer. I just looked at them for a second. All of them. Then I said, you've all been relying on me for years, without realizing it. Marcus shifted slightly. Danielle looked up from her phone. Dad frowned. What does that mean? He asked. And that's when I laid it out. Not defensively. Not emotionally. Just clearly. The systems. The maintenance. The constant behind-the-scenes work that kept everything running. How long it had been happening. How often. How much of their daily operations depended on it. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't dramatize it. I just told the truth. By the time I finished, no one interrupted. Dad leaned back slightly. Marcus looked at the floor. Danielle's expression had shifted completely. Less frustration, more calculation. Mom just watched me. Why didn't we know this? Dad asked. I thought about that for a second. Then said, because you never really asked. That one sat heavier than anything else. And for the first time, no one argued back. No one spoke right away after that. It wasn't dramatic silence. No one stormed out. No one raised their voice. It was quieter than that. The kind of quiet where people are replaying things in their head, trying to line up what they thought was true with what they just heard. Dad rubbed his forehead slowly, like he was working through numbers that didn't add up. Marcus leaned back against the wall again, but he wasn't relaxed anymore. He kept shifting his weight, like he didn't know where to stand. Danielle crossed her arms. Not defensive exactly, more like she was containing something. Mom looked at me a little longer than the others. I don't know why, but that part stayed with me. So all these issues, Dad said eventually. That's because you stopped? I nodded. I stopped maintaining things, yeah. He let out a slow breath. And there's no quick fix? There are fixes, I said. But they're not one time. These systems need consistent upkeep. Marcus let out a short laugh under his breath. Of course they do, he muttered. More to himself than anyone else. Danielle finally spoke. You're telling me, she said, measured and precise like she was back in a meeting, that multiple parts of our work depend on something you've been managing, informally? That's one way to put it, I said. Her jaw tightened slightly. That's not a stable structure, she said. I almost smiled at that. No. Iraplia. It isn't. For a moment, it felt like they were all looking at the situation from the outside. Analyzing it. Problem solving. Which, honestly, was kind of ironic. Then Marcus spoke again. So what are we supposed to do now? He asked. That question shifted the room. Because now it wasn't about what happened. It was about what came next. I didn't answer immediately. Not to drag it out. Just because I wanted to be clear. You can learn how your systems actually work, I said. Or you can hire someone to manage them properly. Dad frowned. Hire someone? For this? Yes, I said. This isn't a small thing. He shook his head slightly. I thought it was just software. I nodded. That's the point. When it works, it feels simple. Danielle exhaled. This is going to take time, she said. Yeah, I replied. It will. And in the meantime, she pressed. I met her gaze. In the meantime, I said, things might stay a little unstable. That didn't sit well. I could see it. Marcus pushed off the wall. So we just deal with it. I did, I said. That slipped out before I could soften it. The room shifted again. Mom finally stepped in. Okay, she said gently. Let's not turn this into something bigger than it needs to be. Ich glänzte her. It already was. She looked at me. Elliot, are you saying you won't help at all? I'm saying I'm not going back to how it was, I replied. She nodded slowly. That makes sense, she said. That surprised me. But is there a way forward where everyone understands what's happening, and things still get fixed? I thought about that. Because this wasn't about punishing anyone. At least, not really. There is, I said. Everyone looked at me now. I can help, I continued, but not like before. Marcus frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means this isn't invisible anymore, I said. No more quick favors. No more last-minute fixes like it's nothing. Danielle nodded faintly. She was already catching on. You want structure, she said. Exactly. Dad looked between us. Structure how? I hesitated for a second. Not because I didn't know. Because saying it out loud would make it real. Clear responsibility, I said. Define scope. And if I'm involved, it's treated like actual work. Marcus let out a breath. You mean like paying you? I met his eyes. Yes. That word hung in the room longer than anything else had. Not because it was unreasonable. Because it had never been considered before. Dad shifted in his chair. You've been helping us all this time and never asked for anything. I know, I said. Then why now? That question could have gone a lot of ways. But the answer was simple. Because now you see what happens when I don't. No one argued with that. Danielle was the first to respond. That's fair, she said. Everyone looked at her. If this is something that affects our work at this level, she continued, then it should have been formal from the beginning. She glanced at me. I didn't realize the extent of it. That's on me. That was unexpected. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just accountability. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, he said slowly. I didn't either. He looked at me. And I probably should have. Dad didn't say anything for a bit. Then finally, all right, he said. So what does this look like? And just like that, the conversation changed. Not fixed. Not resolved. But shifted. For the first time, they weren't just reacting to problems. They were trying to understand the system behind them. We spent the next hour talking through it. Messy, imperfect, a few overlaps and misunderstandings, but real. I explained what each system needed, where the weak points were, what regular maintenance actually involved. There were moments where they looked surprised, other moments where they looked a little uneasy, like they were realizing how much they hadn't been paying attention to. But something else was happening too. Something quieter. They were listening, not nodding politely, not waiting for their turn to speak, actually listening. And I don't know why, but that mattered more than I expected. By the time the conversation wound down, nothing was magically solved. Marcus still had issues to deal with. Dad still had inventory problems. Danielle still had deadlines looming. But now, they knew. And that changed how everything moved after that. The next few weeks weren't smooth. Not even close. Things broke in ways they hadn't before. Small errors turned into bigger ones, because no one was stepping in instantly anymore. Marcus lost a client. Not all of them. Just one. But it hit him. Harder than he expected. Dad had to double-check inventory manually for a while. He didn't complain about it to me. Not once. Danielle? She adapted the fastest. Not perfectly. But she asked questions now. Real ones. Not can you fix this, but how does this part work? And me? I didn't jump in to rescue everything. Even when I could have. Even when it would have been easy. Instead, I helped differently. Scheduled time. Clear boundaries. Actual conversations about what needed to be done. It felt strange at first. For all of us. But slowly, things stabilized again. Not because I went back to being invisible, but because everything was finally out in the open. One evening, a few weeks later, Marcus came by again. No urgency this time. No busine. He just leaned against the same spot near the door and said, I get it now. I raised an eyebrow. Get what? He shrugged slightly. What you were doing, he said. What it actually took. I nodded. Didn't make a big deal out of it. Should have seen it earlier, he added. Yeah, I said. Probably. He laughed a little at that. Then glanced around. You're not mad, are you, he asked. I thought about that. Longer than I expected. Not anymore, I said. And that was true. Because it wasn't really about anger in the end. It was about being seen. And now, I was. Not perfectly. Not all the time. But enough. And weirdly, that was all I needed. Sometimes, people don't realize your value because everything you do makes their lives easier. So easy, they forget it's even there. Until it's not. And when that happens, that's when they finally see you. Not as background. Not as still figuring things out. But as the person who was holding more together than anyone realized.